This is my web services video demonstrating on what I did to create my web server. Initially, I opened my GitHub account to do my assignment first before I could test it and run it. And I first coded in the README mode, but I programmed everything using the GitHub before I even went on to do the actual programming of the web services. After that, I started the command prompt after I'd installed my Node.js. And after installing my Node.js and starting, I I I then went on to export to create the package JS, which I'll show you in a second. To create the package JSON, this one, which contained the name of the project and everything else that's there that we used, the name of the project and all the softwares that we installed. So after I had done so, I have installed my Node.js and have done so. I press create in the command prompt, and then it generated this script that you just saw, which allows me to connect to my file, and also it connects to my GitHub account. So after I have done so, I went on to create my server when I had since linked it into the computer and the GitHub, where I tied my code. I first put express require, then up before I did the other part. Before I did the other part of creating, because initially my design did not have MongoDB, which came later on as I progressed. And when I set up the port, the router, and the listening, where I used to test whether this program was working before I even went on further to running it. And after that, I started programming. I installed my Express. It came with the node. And then after that, I programmed my get ignore so that it can ignore there are certain parameters that needed to be ignored for for the reason that it would allow me not to use um these softwares in because they are information that should remain hidden. So after I had done that and have entered this, I went on to start creating my routers when I programmed my routers with the index.js, which was the first part where my program would run. And then after I had created that, uh I created my data with my database to so that I could separate my program not to be crowded and to pick 4 points from others. And this is what I did because my database will communicate from the server. When the server requests for a database, it looks into this folder, and then this folder will bring in the information here that's is needed to run my web server. And after that, I created my users, controller user and users so that it could run this package. When I done that, I went on and typed node server. Prior to this, before I had done all this, I installed my .env, which ran, um, which used so that I could use other programs that are there. And also I also installed my MongoDB, which I installed also on the computer, and the Mongo campus, which I also installed on the computer, that I can use it to see the information of how this server works well, whether it's going well and it's working well. So after I had done all this, I typed nodeserver.js, which told me that my database is listening and node is running at port 300. So to demonstrate my port 300, which is my local host, I went on here to demonstrate it here. So initially, my local port did not, it showed a hello world, and this wasn't the initial thing that it showed. Initially, it was showing only for users. So because I had programmed it, I wanted to test whether it would pick. If I picked a certain ID, it would pick a single phrase. If I pick a certain ID, for instance, if I pick this, so I would use it on my local host when I had typed, and then I pasted this. When I pasted, it entered, and when it ran, I think it's gonna take a bit of a second. Uh, this is what came out, which showed it was working. So from there, I went into my MongoDB. Before I did everything, the data that I was using is coming from MongoDB. I had to set it up from here so that it could bring up the information that I could use. And my initial phase, I had to go and open to register the account and also set up information that were necessary in the clusters. Just take a second. So after I done that, this is where I entered my database, which is from project one. As you can see, I did the option, and it gave me other things that I needed to do. Uh, I started by inserting the document, and then I could add more information. When it said create correlation, I could add information using this part into my database so that I could use that database to listen to instruction. Then I went on to setting up my database access and my network access to help me, uh, which is this place where I started my database network access, which allowed me to set up the password that this database would correspond to. And also went on to create my second whole my second IP address, which would be used to connect to my database. And this is the IP address my computer was using when I was setting it up. So after I had set up my environment, I went to my database so I could get the link to my MongoDB, that I could use it to link it to my database on the code. So I went on connect, and on connect it gave me this, and I went on campus where I copied my URL to the database that I was using, which is this URL. That's where I copied and inserted it in my VS Code so I could run it and I could make sure that this program runs. So after I done that, all this, I went on to open an account with Render. And with Render, I used before I started by creating the environment that I needed, and went on to insert my GitHub account data. This is the information from the GitHub account, which I took my GitHub URL and infused it into my, it started, before that I started using it, I made sure it was linked to my VS Code. And here I set it up into the environment where I placed the URL and everything else. I set it up so that it could pick my program when I run it. So after that, I had to check whether my program was in the main, which it was. As you can see, this is the link to my GitHub account that I had linked it with my render account. And as we can go, if we go down, we can see that it shows that it was listening at which port when it started running initially, testing whether this works. It started picking my information, checking everything else that was there, and tried running it. And when it ran, it was successful. It started, as it went on, it kept on running the initial stage before it finished. When it last finished, it told us, it told me it was running on port 300, and then it went on to verifying everything. When I updated a command in my GitHub account until it came, and then it told me my server is up and it's running. So on my server, it gave me a link to run, which will run to render, which is my URL that I can use to check whether the program is running. And I've just done that just to demonstrate. So while it's loading, while I'm waiting for it to finish loading so that I can show you how it came out on my render website. Here we go. So here I had to put / users so that it could pick information, which is here. It's connecting with my MongoDB, connecting, taking my JSON file, which is my database in my MongoDB, displaying it onto the screen using render. And I'll select one. Let me pick the first one to check whether it also can pick a specific user. And run it. Yes, it's picking up. As you can see, this demonstrates this project. Yeah, this the my code for project 1 is running and it's picked by render, as it can select an individual using ID, object ID. This is corresponding to this part of the code. It's corresponding to this part of the code where it's picking the user ID to run on render and to select an individual folder from the JSON file. So thank you very much for taking along as I demonstrate on my project how it's working. Thank you. Have a great day.